You've been taught that energy is a spiritual idea. That's the lie. Energy isn't something reserved for mystics or gurus. It's the invisible structure behind every breath you take, every thought you think, and every outcome you experience. And there's a book, nearly buried by time and intention, that explains exactly how to manipulate it. The Corpus Hermeticum isn't mythology. It's a manual, cloaked in metaphor, masked in allegory. But when you understand how to read it, something clicks. It's not about belief, it's about control. Not control over others, but over the only thing that really matters: your internal frequency, your energetic output, your signal to the world. That's what they never wanted you to learn. Because once you realize that your reality is shaped not from outside in, but from inside out, no system, no authority, no structure can own you. The truth is, you're already radiating energy. The only question is, are you doing it by accident or by design? The biggest trick ever played was convincing you that energy is something vague, abstract, or only accessible through spiritual devotion, that it's intangible, untestable, untouchable. But the truth is, you've felt it your entire life. You've just never been taught to recognize it for what it is. That tension you feel when walking into a room where something's off, even before anyone speaks. That strange electricity that sparks up your spine when someone stares at you from across the room. The comfort you feel in someone's presence without a single word being exchanged. These aren't quirks or coincidences. They're the language of energy, a system you've always been wired to detect but never trained to understand. And this is where the deception runs deep. You were raised in a world that prioritized logic, memorization, productivity. You were taught to value intellect over intuition, thought over feeling, to dismiss anything you couldn't measure with a ruler or quantify on a spreadsheet. You were conditioned to see the body as a machine, and energy as something woo-woo. But what if that conditioning wasn't neutral? What if dulling your natural energetic awareness was part of the design? Because the truth is this: you are a transmitter. You are broadcasting all the time, with every thought, every breath, every micro emotion. Your internal state is not locked inside you. It radiates outward into what the Hermetic masters described as the field, or the divine current. And that field, subtle though it may be, responds, not to what you say you want, but to what you are aligned with internally. You're not just feeling life, you're shaping it, whether you realize it or not. This is why most people feel like they're pushing against reality with everything they've got, but never quite getting anywhere. It's not because they lack effort. It's because their energy is scattered, misaligned, distorted by unconscious thoughts, emotional residue, and years of inner noise. The signal they're sending out is foggy, and so the field sends back static. What Hermetic teachings make brutally clear is this: your breath, your focus, and your emotion aren't personal. They are tools. They are signal shapers. The Corpus Hermeticum doesn't ask you to believe in some mystical force. It tells you that force is already in motion, and you're already in contact with it. The problem is, no one taught you how to command it. Until now. Some parts of this system are too sensitive to say outright here, but we break them down in full inside our free newsletter, Insights Academy. Sign up through the link below and get a copy of the Kybalion while it's still available. The reason this book is so dangerous isn't because it makes you powerful. It's because it reminds you that you already are. And once you remember that, the systems that rely on your unconscious compliance begin to fall apart. Energy is not optional. It's not a belief. It's a current that's always running. And the only difference between the people who feel stuck and the ones who seem to bend life in their direction is simple. Some are transmitting by accident, and others by design. There's a reason the Corpus Hermeticum was buried under layers of symbolism, mysticism, and centuries of misinterpretation. It wasn't because the knowledge was irrelevant. It was because it was too effective, too direct. It taught people how to interact with the world, not through force, religion, or politics, but through the subtle, structured manipulation of energy. And if you can do that, if you can learn to bend the current that shapes reality itself, you no longer need permission from any system to live freely. That's what made it dangerous. Not just to the dogmas of its time, but to the institutions that still benefit from your energetic ignorance today. What's hidden in the Hermetic texts is a map, not a map of places, but of perception. It teaches that reality is not fixed, but fluid, malleable in the hands of those who understand its hidden structure. And that structure begins not in the external world, but in the internal one. The ancient Hermeticists weren't passive philosophers, they were engineers of the unseen. They believed every human being was a microcosm of the universe itself, and that by aligning the microcosm, your body, your mind, your emotional field, you could directly affect the macrocosm. What's above is like what's below. What's within is reflected without. This isn't a metaphor, it's mechanics. The Hermetic path is one of alignment, not asceticism. You don't need to retreat from the world. You need to engage it with a refined frequency. And that starts with understanding your own system. Hermetic writings describe the human being as a trinity body, soul, and divine spark. These aren't separate entities, but interconnected layers through which energy flows. The body is the vessel. The soul is the conductor. The spark, the nous, is the director. When all three are coherent, energy moves cleanly through you. When one is fractured or stagnant, distortion enters the field. This is why most people live in fragmentation. They have thoughts pulling them one way, emotions pulling them another, and physical tension locking them in place. Their field becomes noisy, chaotic, and disconnected from intention. They want to create change, but their signal is scrambled. Hermeticism teaches that you cannot influence the field around you until the current within you is aligned. Alignment isn't a moral concept, it's energetic precision. It's not about being good, it's about being clear. And here's what's most overlooked. The Corpus Hermeticum never promoted passivity. It doesn't ask you to surrender your will to some cosmic order. It tells you to refine your will until it becomes indistinguishable from the divine order itself. You don't wait for alignment, you cultivate it. Thought by thought, breath by breath, moment by moment. And as your internal signal becomes more coherent, reality begins to respond, not in metaphor, in form. That's what this book encodes. It's not a theory of reality, it's a training manual. It tells you that the universe is responsive, not reactive, and that you, as a conscious being, have the capacity to engage with it deliberately, not through belief, but through attention, not through effort, but through frequency. The reason this text was hidden was never because it was false. It was because it made middlemen obsolete. Everything you've ever experienced, every opportunity, relationship, setback, coincidence wasn't random. It was shaped by a field you didn't know you were influencing. Because whether you realize it or not, you are always broadcasting. Right now, as you listen to this, your system is emitting a signal, not metaphorically, literally. Your thoughts aren't trapped in your head. Your emotions aren't private. Every inner state you hold creates ripples through your energetic field. The ancient Hermeticists understood this not as poetry, but as precision. What you focus on, you energize. And what you energize begins to take form. Attention isn't just mental focus. It's a form of transmission. It directs energy, organizes subtle forces, and defines the shape of your reality. This is why when your attention is fractured, jumping between fears, distractions, obligations, your external life mirrors that fragmentation. You try to manifest clarity, but your signal is split. You want change, but your field is tangled. The Hermetic path begins with the understanding that attention is a sacred currency. You spend it constantly. The question is, are you investing it with intention or leaking it without knowing? This is where most people live, unconscious of their broadcast. They think they're just reacting to life, but life is actually reacting to them. Their reality is not random, it's patterned. And the pattern is a feedback loop generated by their inner state. If your mind is crowded with doubt, if your emotional field is saturated with old resentment, if your breath is shallow and scattered, what do you think your field is telling the world? What kind of signal do you think it's pulsing out into the collective space? Hermeticism doesn't leave this vague. It offers a direct approach to restructuring that signal. First, it teaches that thought is not a private experience. It's a vibration, one that, when repeated and emotionally charged, begins to crystallize into structure. That's how belief forms. And belief, when unexamined, becomes architecture energetic scaffolding that dictates what you can and cannot access. Most people live in invisible cages built from thoughts they didn't choose. They carry beliefs about their worth, their potential, their limits, not because they're true, but because they were repeated until their field adapted to them. The Corpus Hermeticum flips that completely. It shows you that your internal world is not a mirror of reality. It's the blueprint. When you begin to clear your field, when you breathe with awareness, when you direct your focus into a single, coherent intention, your life begins to reorganize. Things click. Obstacles dissolve. Timing aligns. Not because you're lucky, but because you're transmitting a frequency that reality can recognize and reflect. This isn't wishful thinking. This is energetic coherence. It's why visualization isn't fantasy. It's instruction. When you hold a clear image, infused with emotional charge and backed by focus, you're sending out instructions into the field. The clearer the image, the stronger the signal. And the stronger the signal, the more responsive the field becomes. It doesn't always come back the way you imagined, but it always comes back aligned to what you truly broadcasted. This is why attention is everything. It's not about positive thinking. It's about energetic architecture. Your life, as it is now, is the echo of what you've been transmitting, consciously or not. And the moment you take responsibility for that signal, the structure of your reality starts to shift. You begin to move from default to design, from unconscious leakage to deliberate command. And the field around you, it listens, not to your words, not even to your desires, but to the frequency you hold when no one is watching. You can't shape energy clearly if you're carrying static. And right now, most people are. The invisible weight, the brain fog, the sudden emotional crashes that don't seem to have a cause, these aren't personality quirks. They're symptoms of an unmaintained field. Your energetic system is absorbing far more than you realize. Every room you walk into, every conversation you engage in, every scroll through social media, you're taking on frequencies. Some lift you, most drain you, and if you don't know how to cleanse them, they don't just fade, they stick. Energy, by nature, is sticky. It clings to unresolved emotions, unspoken tension, and even unacknowledged thoughts. And the longer it sits in your system, the more it begins to distort your perception, dull your intuition, and fragment your signal. This is why cleansing isn't optional. It's not spiritual hygiene, it's energetic survival. Hermetic practitioners knew this. They weren't just meditating in silence for peace of mind. They were clearing the field to make space for clean transmission. Cleansing begins with breath, not just breathing deeply, but breathing with full attention. Every exhale becomes an act of release. When done with intention, even a single breath can move energy. But combine it with visualization, smoke leaving the body, gray mist exiting the mouth, and you have a simple, potent ritual. Layer that with water, and the effect deepens. Salt baths, cold showers, natural bodies of water all act as energetic reset points. Not because the water is magic, but because the body recognizes it as a conduit for letting go. But once the field is clean, the next question becomes, how do you protect it? How do you keep other people's energy out of your space without disconnecting from the world? That's where shielding comes in. Again, not a metaphor, a practice. Imagine a sphere of light expanding from your core, clear, strong, impenetrable. Hold that image. Let it become felt, not just seen. The more consistently you do this, the more your system adapts. Your energy begins to contour around your intention. Boundaries are no longer something you have to enforce with words. They're felt before you even enter the room. Protection, however, is only half the equation. Because no matter how clear your field, no matter how strong your shield, life will throw density your way. Fear, sadness, conflict, they happen. And when they do, the Hermetic practitioner doesn't suppress them. They transmute them. This is the art of energetic alchemy, turning heaviness into clarity, anger into action, fear into fuel. You don't escape energy, you reassign it. Visualize a golden fire at your solar plexus, steady and unshakable. Feed it your emotional density. See it burn, refine, transform. What leaves isn't the same as what entered. That's the point. This is the forgotten skill of inner mastery, not bypassing emotion, but redirecting it. Not fighting negativity, but reconfiguring its form. Because in the end, energy is neutral. What we call bad energy is simply misaligned energy, energy in the wrong place, or held for too long. But once you learn to cleanse it, shield your field, and transmute the rest, you become something few ever experience. Sovereign. Unshaken not because nothing touches you, but because you know how to process and direct whatever does. That's what the ancient texts were trying to teach, not how to escape life, but how to move through it without distortion. Your thoughts are not private. You've been led to believe they live and die in your head, that they're intangible mental processes floating in isolation. But Hermeticism never treated thought as passive or inconsequential. Thought, according to the ancient texts, is structure. It is energy in blueprint form. Every repeated thought begins to press itself into your field like a groove on a record. And over time, those grooves determine how energy flows in your life. What shows up, what doesn't, where momentum builds, and where it stalls. The average person has thousands of thoughts per day, most of them recycled from the day before. Loops of comparison, worry, fantasy, judgment. And because they're habitual, they don't even register as choices anymore. They feel like background noise. But the field doesn't see them as noise. It treats them as instructions. That's the silent trap. You're constantly giving orders to reality, even when you don't mean to. Especially then. Hermetic teachings cut through this illusion with clarity that's almost uncomfortable. If your life feels stuck, scattered, or misaligned, your thought field is likely the root, not the circumstances, not the people around you, but the vibrational signature your thoughts are imprinting into the field, moment by moment. And that signature isn't based on what you want, it's based on what you consistently hold. This is why visualization, when done properly, is far more than daydreaming, it's coding. When you visualize with emotional charge and coherent intention, you are sending a structured frequency into the field, not begging for outcomes, not trying to manifest through force, but informing the space around you with a new pattern. And when that pattern is repeated, especially during altered states like deep breathwork, meditation, or even the hypnagogic state before sleep, it begins to reshape the architecture of your energetic field, and the field responds. But this only works when your inner world is clear enough to hold the signal. If your mind is cluttered with contradiction, if you say you want peace but constantly entertain anxiety, if you wish for abundance but mentally prepare for lack, then your signal splits. One frequency cancels out the other, and the field returns nothing but static. This is not punishment. It's precision. The field doesn't deliver what you want. It delivers what you are coherent with. This is why mental discipline isn't about suppressing thought. It's about consciously choosing what patterns you repeat. It's not about avoiding negativity at all costs. It's about understanding that your mind is a transmitter, and that each thought is a frequency being amplified by your emotion. If the thoughts you carry are loaded with fear, resentment, or shame, that's the data being sent out. And that's what will echo back, not because the universe is cruel, but because it's exact. When Hermetic masters spoke of purification, they didn't mean moral purity. They meant vibrational clarity, thoughts unclouded by contradiction, emotions held without distortion, a mind that is both still and intentional, capable of generating clean frequencies that ripple outward into form. This is what it means to be an engineer of reality, not just to observe your thoughts, but to choose them with the same care you would use to build a house or compose a piece of music. Because that's what you're doing. Every moment of every day, you are composing the field with your internal frequency. The only question is, are you composing noise or resonance? It's easy to believe the power is in the tools, that the crystal holds the frequency, the ritual creates the shift, the symbol unlocks the door, that if you just find the right chant, the perfect altar, the most ancient talisman, something outside of you will finally flip the switch. This belief has been carefully marketed to you. Spirituality sold like tech. More gadgets, more access, more power. But the Corpus Hermeticum says something else entirely. It says the tool does nothing. It amplifies, it reflects, it echoes, but it does not generate. You do. That truth is inconvenient for those who sell you the opposite. Because once you realize the source of your influence is your own state of consciousness, you stop outsourcing your power. You stop searching for the next external fix, and you begin doing the harder, quieter work of refining the only instrument that really matters, your own energetic system. That's what Hermeticism is, an inner technology. It teaches that the body is the altar, attention is the ritual, and will is the wand. Symbols, crystals, sound, these are not magic in themselves. They're frequency anchors. They work only in proportion to the clarity and intention of the person using them. A quartz crystal in the hands of someone scattered will do nothing but collect dust. But in the hands of someone who is centered, aligned, and directing energy with precision, it becomes a tuning fork, a conductor, not a generator. Same tool, entirely different output. Why? Because the frequency comes from you. Even ritual, when stripped of presence, becomes theater, a hollow performance that might feel sacred, but moves no energy. But when performed with real awareness, when the movements are infused with deliberate breath, focused thought, and emotional charge, ritual becomes architecture. It shapes the unseen. This is why ancient Hermetic practitioners spent as much time preparing the mind as they did preparing the space. Because without internal clarity, external tools are dead weight. You see, most people try to fix their lives by fixing what's around them. They rearrange furniture, switch jobs, and change relationships. And sometimes it helps, for a while. But the field doesn't respond to cosmetic shifts. It responds to resonance. And resonance is an inside job. If your system is incoherent, nothing outside of you will bring lasting alignment. You can surround yourself with sacred geometry, wear every protective stone, burn rare herbs, and still feel foggy, scattered, and stuck. Because the tool is not the source. This isn't meant to strip away the beauty of external tools. It's meant to elevate your role in the process. To remind you that when you hold a symbol, it's not the ink or metal or stone that matters, it's the meaning you charge it with. When you chant a phrase or light a candle, it's your state of consciousness that activates it. The Hermetic principle is simple. Energy follows attention, and attention, when coherent, shapes the field, not the other way around. This is the shift most never make. They collect tools, memorize incantations, buy books full of spells, but they never develop the internal voltage to power any of it. The truth is, all these tools are training wheels. They're reminders, not requirements. You use them until you don't need them, until you can sit in stillness, close your eyes, align your breath, and shape your energy without touching a single object. That's when the system is online. That's when the tools become extensions, not crutches. That's when the game changes. They never told you your body was sacred. They told you it was a vehicle at best, a machine of flesh and blood, to be worked, sculpted, shamed, or ignored. But in Hermetic thought, the body isn't secondary. It's central. It is not just a container for the spirit. It is the spirit in motion. It's the most precise, most responsive, most magical instrument you will ever touch. And when you learn to move it with intention, you're not just exercising, you're transmitting. You've seen hints of this in practices like yoga, tai chi, martial arts systems built around the interplay of breath, awareness, and movement. But long before they were systems, they were principles. And these principles echo through the Corpus Hermeticum without ever needing to spell them out in poses. The Hermetic view is simple. When you move with conscious breath, you're shaping energy. You're becoming the ritual. You're not casting a spell, you are the spell. Every gesture becomes a broadcast. Every posture, a statement. When you stretch, twist, bend, or rise with awareness, your field responds. Muscles aren't just tissue, they're storage units. They hold memory, emotion, block charge. This is why movement isn't just physical release, it's energetic discharge. Ever cried unexpectedly during a stretch? That wasn't weakness. That was data leaving your body. Because motion is the language your nervous system speaks when words fall short. But the difference between movement as escape and movement as ritual is awareness. Mindless movement leaks energy. It's how people work out hard and still feel empty. But when breath leads, when focus is tuned, when the spine becomes a channel and the heart a center of power, suddenly, your body isn't just burning calories, it's shaping frequency. You walk differently. You hold space differently. You don't enter a room and hope to blend in, you pulse a signal, and people feel it before you speak. This is what Hermeticism teaches beneath the symbols. The body is not in the way of your energy work, it is the way. Your gait, your stillness, your gestures, they all speak a language the field understands. And when they align with breath and thought, they amplify your broadcast tenfold. This is why dancers can move an audience to tears without words. Why a martial artist in flow seems untouchable. They've tuned their physical expression to something greater than muscle memory. They've become transmission towers. When you move with purpose, you're not just working the body, you're clearing static. Every intentional movement is a sweep, a purge, a recalibration. Shake, sway, jump, spiral. These aren't random. They're primal codes. And when done with breath and presence, they open channels. They clear energy that talk therapy can't touch. They move what logic can't reach. This is also why posture matters. It's not about looking confident, it's about structuring your field. Slouched, closed posture compresses breath, collapses energy, and tells the field, I'm small. Upright, open posture frees the diaphragm, expands your presence, and tells the field, I'm here. It's not ego, it's frequency geometry. In Hermetic tradition, the body was never seen as separate from the work. It was the living altar, the moving wand, the embodied sigil. And when you realize that, everything shifts. Movement stops being mundane. You don't need a mat or a temple, you just need attention. Walk with breath and clarity, and the ground becomes sacred. Stand still with intention, and the room rearranges. The question isn't whether you're moving energy, you already are. The question is, are you moving it by design or by default? You're not unlucky, you're not cursed, and life isn't random. The truth is much harder to swallow and far more liberating. You are experiencing exactly what your field is broadcasting. Every relationship, opportunity, block, and breakthrough is mirroring back a pattern that exists in your energetic structure. And once you see this, there are only two options. Deny it and stay powerless, or own it and begin engineering your reality on purpose. This is the brutal beauty of Hermeticism. It removes the cushion of blame. It dissolves the illusion that life is happening to you. Instead, it teaches that life is happening through you, because of you. Not your personality, not your intentions, but your alignment. It's not about whether you think positively. It's about whether your internal frequency is coherent, consistent, and congruent with what you claim to want. That's the hard part. You can want abundance, but if your field is shaped by scarcity and fear, you'll never touch it. Not because you don't deserve it, but because the mechanics of energy are precise. Most people live in energetic contradiction. They say they want love, but carry unhealed betrayal. They want purpose, but suppress their voice. They crave change, but stay looped in survival mode. These internal splits fracture the signal, and fractured signals create chaotic outcomes. That's not bad luck. That's physics. The Corpus Hermeticum doesn't dress this up in fluff. It makes it clear. As within, so without. As above, so below. Your field is the architecture your reality follows. But here's what changes everything. Your field is not fixed. It's programmable. Every breath, every thought, every intentional act begins to reshape it. And the more coherence you bring to your system, mind, emotion, body, breath, the more your external life begins to reflect that alignment. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because reality is not reacting to your wishful thinking. It's responding to the dominant vibration you carry when no one is watching. This is why healing isn't just emotional, it's mechanical. When you release old wounds, you don't just feel lighter. You remove frequency distortions from your field. When you stop replaying mental loops of self-doubt, you free up energy that was stuck feeding dead circuits. When you reclaim your breath, you reoxygenate the signal. It's all connected. Nothing is symbolic. Everything is structural. The transition from victim to engineer begins with one brutal question. What patterns am I still loyal to? Not on the surface, but in your habits, your reactions, your inner dialogue. Because your field doesn't lie. You can recite affirmations all day long, but if your nervous system is still in fear mode, the field will amplify fear. And if your actions don't match your claims, your vibration will fragment. Energy has no interest in your words, it follows your alignment. This is what most people miss when they try to manifest. They try to trick the field, smile through gritted teeth, post vision boards while staying stuck in cycles. But the field can't be fooled. It can only be met with honesty. And when you finally align, deeply, consistently, fully, reality doesn't need convincing. It responds, automatically, because you're not requesting anymore. You're radiating. You've become the tuning fork. Here's the truth. The moment you begin designing your internal world deliberately, the external has no choice but to rearrange. You don't beg for change. You become the frequency that demands it. That's when life starts working with you, not against you. Not because you hacked the system, but because you remembered. You are the system. You've always been the current, the circuit, and the conductor. Now, you just have to start acting like it. The final truth isn't buried in some monastery or encoded in hieroglyphs. It's right in front of you, written in the design of your own being. You are the medium, the conductor, the force. Every time you look outside for permission, for proof, for a sign that you're allowed to live in alignment, you give your power away. But what if the ultimate hermetic lesson wasn't about magic, or gods, or ancient secrets? What if it was simply this? The current is already flowing through you. You don't need to summon it. You need to stop blocking it. The system has trained you to believe power is complicated, that you need credentials, spiritual lineage, 10-step programs. That mastery is something you reach after years of following someone else's rules. But energy doesn't respect hierarchy. It respects coherence. The field doesn't care about your background, your beliefs, or your failures. It cares about your signal. Are you clear? Are you aligned? Are you broadcasting a frequency that's congruent with your truth? Living as a force means dropping the performance. It means no longer doing things to appear powerful, spiritual, or successful, but to be them. It's subtle. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving. You walk into a room and your presence says more than your words ever could. Because when you're in alignment, reality speaks through you. Not in flashes or coincidences, but in sustained patterns of clarity, flow, and response. Hermeticism never promised comfort. It promised sovereignty, and that's something the modern world fears, because sovereign people don't make good consumers. They don't look for validation in price tags or filtered posts. They don't need gurus. They don't outsource their knowing. And that kind of person, that person is dangerous to a system built on control. So the real question is, are you willing to let go of who the system told you to become who you already are underneath it all? Are you ready to live in a way that no longer depends on the opinions, rules, or approvals of others? Because that's where the current lives in your raw, unfiltered, uncommodified essence. It's been there the whole time, humming under the noise, waiting for you to return. This isn't about rebellion for the sake of it. It's not about burning the world down. It's about building a new one, starting with yourself. Reclaim your energy, your thoughts, your movements, your rituals. Purify your field, not through avoidance or bypassing, but through radical responsibility, through daily presence, through living as if your energy shapes everything, because it does. You don't need to understand every ancient symbol to live like a hermetic master. You need to embody the principle, as within, so without. You need to stop seeking transformation as an escape, and start using it as your default setting. Energy is not something to be waited on. It's something to be wielded, and you already have the tools. Your breath, your body, your attention, your will. This is your moment to stop reacting to reality and start designing it. To stop asking for signs and start becoming the signal. This is not a concept. It's not a metaphor. It's mechanics, precision, alignment, frequency. The Corpus Hermeticum didn't tell stories to entertain. It laid out a system. And now, that system is yours to use or ignore. But if you've come this far, something in you already knows. Something in you remembers. And that part of you is waking up. The illusions are crumbling. The distractions are fading. And what's left is raw potential, waiting for instruction, waiting for you to command, not from ego but from coherence, from clarity, from power. This is your invitation to stop leaking energy into the old world and start building the new one with every breath. Because once you reclaim the current, once you live in flow with your own signal, you become impossible to manipulate and impossible to ignore. And if you're ready to go further, to access teachings we can't even say out loud here, make sure you sign up for the Insights Academy newsletter. It's free, it's raw, and it's where we share the material that bends minds. Plus, for a limited time, you'll get a free digital copy of the Kybalion just for signing up. Don't miss this. It's not fluff, it's a portal. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting. I understood it.